everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from the Winnipeg Free Press in an absolute hurry here, so much so that I forgot to set up my microphone. So I'm going to do that while I give you my opening soliloquy. Winnipeg Jets game. The Winnipeg Jets game after what we thought would never happen again. And that's a Winnipeg Jets loss, people. Finally happened. Winnipeg Jets, 8 wins in a row on an absolute heater. Franchise best, 14 straight games, another franchise best with a point. All that comes to an end tonight at the hands of the Philadelphia Flyers, who gave a plucky effort, I thought, coming off of, overtime victory last night. They had to grind out against the Minnesota Wild. If you want to know, it's interesting because when the Winnipeg Jets were on that heater that they've been for quite a long time, and they were playing back-to-back games, and think of the game against the LA Kings down 2-0, and then they come back and win that game. They're supposed to be the team that gets tired, and instead they're the team that gets better and better and better as the game goes on. It is a real thing. Playing back-to-backs does put you in a little bit of a tough situation. So I thought, for the most part, kind of played out the way that you would expect it, at least from what we saw from the Philadelphia Flyers. I think they came in, they tried to play a road period in that first period, tried to get the lead, tried to sit on the lead, didn't really have the end in the third period, what you'd expect, what we've seen in the past from the Winnipeg Jets, where they've found their energy from. I don't get it. I don't understand it. They've been absolutely phenomenal. That energy that we've seen from them time and time again didn't seem like they had it tonight, at least until the third period. Now, I came on here last game and I talked about, the idea of the Winnipeg Jets. I thought that they had a bit of an arrogant effort in their last game against the Chicago Blackhawks. Then they come out and steal things in the third. That was fine and dandy for a lot of people. I didn't think so. You can't come out and only put up 40, not essentially give your first 40 minutes full on energy and then show up in the last period and come back and win it all. Tonight's an example of that, although I don't see this game the same as I saw the Chicago game. While I thought what I saw in the Chicago game was a bit of an arrogant effort by the Winnipeg Jets, a little bit of a return to the snake charmer, a little bit, overpassing and those things. Tonight just looked like a Winnipeg Jets team that has been on a heater for a ridiculous amount of time, basically since the beginning of December, and it just kind of caught up with them. And I would argue there's a lot involved with this as well. Never mind, the energy level that you could expect from a team that's been doing what the Winnipeg Jets have been doing for so long. But the loss of Mark Scheifele. Now, we told a story in the broadcast today about the Winnipeg Jets mantra of having no excuses. Solutions, not excuses, is what they have written in the on the wall in their dressing room. And I think they've really adhered to that. We haven't seen from the Winnipeg Jets the excuses that we've seen in the past. You definitely don't see them from the coach, the excuses that we've seen from, during the Paul Morrissey era. We get back to the old, the time zones and this and that and back to back and all those different kind of things, right? You don't get a lot of that from Rick Bowness. But taking Mark Scheifele out of the lineup on top of Kyle Connor has the potential to, you can say fine and dandy, so it's next man up or whatever, but when you remove your leading goal scorer, who remains your leading goal scorer even though he's been out for over a month, and then you take away your the player that I have thought for the most part of this season has been the Winnipeg Jets MVP, and your leading point producer, and the guy who basically everyone you've put with Mark Scheifele this year has fired. We're seeing the best version of Gabe Vilardi alongside Mark Scheifele. Nikolai Ehlers, I believe it was the stat in the broadcast tonight, led the team in scoring in the month of December. This stuff happens because you're on a line with Mark Scheifele to a large degree. I'm not taking anything away from those players, but Mark Scheifele has been a player this year that has elevated his line mates, his teammates to a different level, I've thought so far. So losing him is tough. Never mind what it does as you kind of jog and move guys around in order to try and make things work. So I don't want to be the excuses guy. I didn't last game. I think I was a little up in arms, and people will be like, "Oh, well, Sean's unhappy when the Jets win. Sean's happy when the Jets lose." All these kind of things. You can think whatever you want. Last game, I thought at the beginning of the first period, the Oilers turning backwards and all this different kind of stuff while they were on the rush and trying to snap the passes around from left to right. Tonight, if you see that third period, the Jets offense was extremely direct. Throw three guys at the front of the net, work the boards better than your opponent, get it to the point, shoot the puck on net, try and take the goaltender's eyes away, a goaltender who was red hot. And they just, to Rick Bonus's point, his whole idea of, it just didn't go in for us tonight. Him seeing that game as basically being a wash, and the bounces went Philly's way and not the Jets. I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, if you want to talk about the stuff that was taken away from the Winnipeg Jets by Harrison, you got to talk about the stuff that was taken away from the Philadelphia Flyers by Connor Hellebuyck. Connor Hellebuyck in this game, when the score is 2-0, just reaches another level. And that game to me is out of hand. And we're talking not only about the Jets win streak, their point streak being history, but we're talking about their streak of 32 now straight games of allowing only 3 goals or less, and never mind that 20 games of allowing 2 goals or less. If Connor Hellebuyck doesn't absolutely show up and steal away, he still ends up at 944 on this night, after this night. But he does lose the stat that Rennie has been keeping throughout this year, and that is who was the better goaltender in this game. No doubt the better goaltender in this game was wearing orange and black and white in this situation. That's my take on the whole thing. Time to bring in the man with the best music in the business, who's going to pull that comment off the screen so everyone can get a great view of his video that goes with the best song in the business. Here he comes, ladies and gentlemen. Here comes. Kenny Farside Bruce from our chat room here says, Connor gave the Jets a chance to win this game. Couldn't finish tonight. Philly still played a hell of a road game. I went on and on for 7 minutes, and Farside Bruce just summed this all up in a tidy little comment. This is great here. He's touching on all points. The fact that the Philadelphia Flyers, people wanted to talk about gutsy efforts. I thought that was a gutsy effort from that team tonight, no doubt. The Jets, they were close. They were all around, couldn't quite seem to finish. And no doubt about it, as I just finished off, Connor Hellebuyck gave the Winnipeg Jets a chance to stay in this game. That could have been out of hand. This is a good-looking comment by Farside Bruce. Not quite as good looking as your outfit tonight there, Kenny. Once again, you got the Hitman look going on. I've got my great purple tie, great combo here from the boys down at Vittorio Rossi. I think we're both looking damn fine here tonight, Ken, just like Farside Bruce's comment. If you want to look not like Farside Bruce's comment, but like Kenny and Rennie all dappered up in the clothing that we wear on this podcast, you know what to do. Head on down to Vittorio Rossi on Corden Avenue. Walk in, loudly proclaim that Kenny and Rennie sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys. They will do you up right. Go on down and see them, everybody. They do great work. Kenny, launch into it. What did you see from this game here tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I think Farside Bruce has it covered pretty concisely, and so did Gabriel Velarde. I mean, the Jets had their moments, and he had the best of the grade A chances today. Probably close to a handful. Robbed a couple times on the glove side. A couple pucks kind of jumped over his stick. I thought he was really buzzing around out there on that top line. But overall, Urson I thought was very good. I mean, you have to give the netminder credit. He was very solid, Samuel Urson. He's had a great year as a backup, and I think that was his 4th career shutout. So this is a guy that's played very well. I thought the Jets were kind of a little bit out of sync at times. First period was mostly
yeah.
even. I agree with Rick's assessment. But I thought, a mostly even period is a win for the Flyers because the Flyers are the team playing back-to-back. So for me, it was a great road period for them. And it was.
I don't give that as an even period. I thought that period, if you're giving,
first half was even. Maybe Flyers owned the second half.
The Flyers win the first period. They win the second period in a walk, and then the third period is all Winnipeg Jets. Anyway.
Yeah, no, some of that. I mean, there would have been. Maybe 2-0 is not quite score effects, but I mean, the Flyers were happy to kind of tread water, and the Jets were turning it on and taking it to them.
I think they were tired. I think they were tired. I don't think they could have matched the Jets' legs if they tried in that third period.
Yeah, I mean, they did go to overtime and rallied from 3-1 down. The Jets are, I think, 6-0 on the back end of back-to-backs too. So I mean,
I'm not taking anything. It was in the rant earlier on. The Jets have found a way to do things I don't think other teams have the capability of doing. I don't think the Philadelphia Flyers had the capability of doing that here. This is not taking anything away from the Jets, but I do think that the Flyers looked like a tired team here tonight.
Yeah, I mean, their structure is just not the same as the Jets. They work incredibly hard, but I mean, their personnel and structure is not as good as the Jets. But I think on a game like tonight, the Flyers had a lot of Jets qualities on display. That was another one of the comments that was shown there. The Flyers did what the Jets do better than what the Jets normally do. So that is one of the signs of a John Tortorella coach team. And I don't think it's an accident that John would have. He would never say it's about himself, but I mean, you and I were there last year when Tortorella spoke about his lengthy meeting with Kevin Cheveldayoff. I mean, he would have loved to have been the team and ended up being the team that snapped this team's franchise record winning streak because he has a lot of respect for him. And when you have a lot of respect for your opponent, of course you want to beat them. So I thought that, the Jets, I thought they were fine. I don't think they were. This to me, Sean, I agree with you. I don't. We often talk about this. So at the end of a long winning streak, normally things slip a bit, and a team gets away with one or two, and you expect them to lose. But to me, it wasn't like that for the Jets. I mean, I thought for the most part they battled through. But today, in a game where you get shut out, I think for the second time this year, it was evident that some of their big offensive weapons were missing. I mean, that's not an excuse.
No
that's a reason why they were shut out.
It's a fact.
So at the same time, they had enough shots and opportunities to if the Jets get one in the third when they're pressing, I do think that things kind of maybe could have unraveled for the Flyers because they're still kind of a young team and trying to find their way. But what they have found is that they work incredibly hard. They finish all of their checks. They get to the blue paint. They defend it pretty well. They've got a very, I think they've got a very capable defense core, even without Jamie Drysdale. And, they're missing their best centerman. Sean Couturier not in the lineup today because of injury. So, I mean, as in terms of the Jets, don't know that I have to launch into it right now, but I would have loved to have seen, and I sent you this before the third. I mean, in a game where the Jets were struggling to find offense, and you'd already had broken up the third line because Adam Lowry needed to play with the top line, I would have loved to have seen Rick Bowness flip-flop Nino Niederreiter and Alex Iafallo. I mean, Iafallo is working incredibly hard. He's great at retrievals. He's very defensively sound and diligent. But in a game you needed offense, Nino Niederreiter was kind of on an island on that third line today, I thought, in some ways. Naturally, Rasmus Kupari is coming back and playing his first game since November 14th. I thought you saw a lot of effort, and I appreciate why Rick Bowness started him there. But obviously we saw him switch to Dominic Toninato because if you miss that much time, you're not going to be ready. And Sean, I don't want to get into say something nice about Ville Heinola this early in the program, but this is what I'm talking about. Rasmus Kupari had played NHL games until November 14th, and he played 11 minutes today. Ville Heinola played his first game since October 3rd in the American Hockey League today. He's not ready for NHL minutes.
No.
So the Jets had no other alternative, and for the folks who are unaware, just so that you know, the Jets couldn't have called up anyone else from the Manitoba Moose today, even if they had wanted to, without exposing one of their defensemen to waivers. So this wasn't a situation, and I'm not advocating for this because I don't believe it's time to do it. But for anyone who said the Jets should call up Brad Lambert, the Jets couldn't call up Brad Lambert without exposing Declan Chisholm, Logan Stanley, or someone else to waivers today. So that's first and foremost. That's why Kupari, who is probably going to play at least 3 games with the Moose, found himself in an NHL lineup today, because that's what the roster allowed them to do. And I think Kupari should have played ahead of Logan Stanley as a 7th defenseman in an 11-7 scenario, and it's got nothing to do with Logan Stanley. I think the Jets were in a situation where they got a couple guys banged up, and Axel Jonsson-Fjällby coming back from illness, that they needed to go with 12 forwards. So that's what they did, and Hanel's fault. Mall classic. Thanks for being here, and thanks for listening. And thanks for listening. Thanks for listening. Most importantly, anyways, I just think that in a game like that, and again, it's easy. I'm not just saying this so that Rick agrees with my position. In a game where offense was hard to come by, this was a night where Mason Appleton is in the midst of a humongous slump. Like there's no way around it, Sean. This is like last year Adam Lowry going 35 without a goal. Mason Appleton had 3 chances in the second period. One of them was blocked. One of them was ripped over the net. He's battling right now. And the crazy part about this getting to 25 games is that, Sean, he had that buzzer beater attempt at an empty netter like 5, 6, or 7 games ago. And now that didn't count, it seems like he's gripping his stick a little bit tightly. So when you have someone gripping their stick a little bit tightly, and you have a guy who has no goals this year and hasn't played since November 14th, I feel like the Jets were doing a disservice is not the proper terminology, but I think Nino was buzzing today. So give him a promotion and let him play with Cole Perfetti and Vladislav Nemestikov for a few shifts and see what happens. But I understand why the Jets didn't want to disrupt every line. They disrupted 2 of the lines, and they needed to disrupt at least one of the lines. So I just that would be in my armchair coaching hat. That's what I would have liked to have seen from the Jets, because this was a game where Perfetti I thought was going, and I thought that Nemestikov was going. So that would have been that would be my one assessment in terms of, hey, Rick Bowness is doing an excellent job with the coaching staff. He knows his team much better than I know the Jets. But from my perch in the press box, I think that would have been a move that I would have liked to have seen to see if it had an impact on the outcome of the hockey game.
I'm going to go ahead and give the Pristine Roofing wake-up call to our Ken Wiebe right now. If he doesn't think for a second that we don't know that you're trying to advocate backdoor to break up the third line, we know what you're doing.
It's already broken up, dog.
You're not fooling anyone. We know what's going on here, but that doesn't change the fact that it's time for to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call. Give him a text, give him a phone call at 1-204-981-6289 if you have any roofing or siding exterior needs. He's the guy who's going to come out and take care of business for you, tell you what you need, tell you how they're going to do it, and set up the boys at Pristine Roofing to come on over and take care of business. Of course, you can always go to Pristine Roofing themselves, 1-204-237-7663. And before we move on too much, I'm going to get into this now. We've given some time for the chat room to build up. It's too bad that in past times when we've had winning games happening here, had 700 plus people in the chat room. We've got 200 now. We get it. A lot of people don't like to tune in for this. They're going to regret that they did, because SK, Stuart Kaspersky, one of the chat room attendants here, he's in right now. I've seen him in the chat room. Stuart Kaspersky's done an awesome thing. He's gone out and bought a pair of tickets to the Winnipeg Jets against the Pittsburgh Penguins game. It's going to be a Hockey Night in Canada game. Rennie's going to be your host that night, but you won't know it, some of you, 2 of you, because Stuart Kaspersky went out and bought tickets and is giving them away in the Kenny and Rennie chat room here tonight. So here's the deal. He's going to monitor this. He's going to go over it. But if you want a shot at those tickets, Stuart Kaspersky is going
There
to
you
hand it out to one of someone who just writes hashtag K and R. It can be KANDR. It can be K and the and symbol R. But get busy in the chat room right now, people. If you want tickets to that game, hashtag K and R is going to enter you to jump in and maybe win those tickets to a great team. And maybe see, someone sent me a funny email the other day and said, hey, so is that the game that Sidney Crosby is going to debut for the Winnipeg Jets? Who knows? Maybe he'll be in a Jets jersey for that game. We'll see what happens. But I already see people are jumping in there. Terry Trey, Braden Mahan, Jeremy B, Glenn Fricker, keep going at it. By the way, Ken, I met Schickster tonight. He came
nicely
over,
done.
saw me down in the spot, jumped in. He's a recent winner of one of our, can't remember if he won the keg save of the game or the TCB Lamp Lighter, but it was good to meet that. Hey, if you ever see Kenny or Rennie out and you're interested in coming over and say hi, we always love meeting the people in real life who we talk with in the chat room. Okay, Ken, kind of getting to the idea of breaking up the third line. I'm going to lead on this one, and you can kind of retort afterwards. Someone had said to me, and it was on Twitter or X or whatever the hell you call it now. I'm never going to stop calling it Twitter. But someone had talked about the idea that they were upset that the third line was broken up in order to get the first line going. Now, I completely and totally understand this. I'm going to bring it up here. Paul Robert 31. He actually included you in this. Says,
he sent me
what
a
I
note
don't
also.
get is why Bones needed to split the third line with 55 out. Why not just promote and play the usual 62, 17, 22 line more? Now, I think this is a great question. There's an obvious answer to it, but I don't think that doesn't mean we shouldn't debate this, because what you're looking at right now in that situation is, since Kyle Connor has gone down, the month of December, I think our stat was tonight, Nikolai Ehlers leads the Winnipeg Jets in scoring. Who leads the Jets in scoring? In scoring. Who leads the Jets in goals since Kyle Connor has gone out? Well, that's 9 goals for Gabe Vilardi.
Right.
These two guys have been leading the way offensively, so they deserve to have the best shot at continuing to being the Jets' best offensive hope tonight. Now, I know a lot of people are going to talk. It's going to be part of the conversation. We could dig into it, but people suggesting Cole Perfetti should maybe slide into that spot. There's an argument to be had there. Maybe Vladimir Namestnikov. He hasn't let anyone down at any point so far this season. Why not give that a try? But I thought the fact of the matter is Adam Lowry went into that spot and he looked great in that spot. And if you were looking for someone to audition in that spot, well, how about Adam Lowry, who assisted on the 2 goals in the last game that had you come back in that game? Adam Lowry has added an offensive element to his game I did not think existed. He looked really good tonight, I thought, in that spot. Generated a lot, hit the post, was almost the guy to score and get that within 1, which I do think not quite what Pat Rathwell is saying. If the Jets score 1, they would have scored 4. But I do think if the Jets scored 1, they would have scored 2 here tonight. And because I contend that the Philadelphia Flyers ran out of gas heading into that third period, they would have won that game 3-2, if not in regulation, but in overtime. But I get the whole idea of that. But at the same time, what it did do is there was nowhere near as an effective a third line. You touched on it, Ken. You wanted stuff mixed up because of that. But what I've thought is interesting in this process here is the Jets have been able to, if you're any team and you've got 2 good lines going, you're probably going to be a pretty good team. If you've got 2 good lines going and 2 other lines that really don't get scored on very much, you're going to be a really good team. If you've got 3 good lines going, you're going to be one of the best teams in the league. If you've got 4 lines going, you're going to be what we're seeing from the Winnipeg Jets right now. I think they were trying to keep the first line going. The bet was, okay, this is going to disrupt the third line, but we're going to try and keep the first line going. Hopefully the second line and Vladimir Namestnikov and those guys can continue doing what they're doing. Maybe Niederreiter can carry the day on the third line, which he gave a valiant effort for. But I will say this, Ken, I'm wondering what that game would have looked like if they would have moved someone up into that spot, someone else, a Cole Perfetti or a Vladdy Nemestikov, kept that third line going, I'm wondering what that would have looked like. I'm wondering what you think about the idea. To me, it's an obvious thing to move Lowry there. And at the same time, I think it's obvious that breaking up the third line really took away a massive element from the Winnipeg Jets tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I told Paul this already by DM. I mean, were we feeling the same way in the second and third period when Adam Lowry was on that line and set up the 2 goals that led them to victory? No one was thinking that. And I mean, is there another way? I mean, can you make the case for Nemestikov to go there? Sure, because he has chemistry with Nikolai Ehlers. But I mean, it wasn't that the Jets, the Flyers worked incredibly hard, but I don't think they were lacking. Tony Notto jumped in on the third line the other day when Lowry went up and played fine. So that's what he did in the third period again today too. So could the Jets have flip-flopped that earlier on? Yes, but Sean, we talk about this all the time. This is game 42. When is a good time to try some things out? When they're winning. And they had won 8 in a row. They had points in 14. I mean,
I couldn't disagree with
you.
I
mean, that's fine. I don't care that you disagree. Yeah. Lowry was the best option to be on that line. And it wasn't just because Kupari was in there playing his first game. Appleton had an off night. He was trying hard, but things weren't going for him. Passes were going. He was turning over the left shoulder instead of the right. Pucks were going off the boards and around him. I mean, if Lowry's there, does it mean it's different automatically? I mean, maybe too. Then you have Nino going and Lowry going. Then maybe then Appleton's playing better. But you already answered your own question, Sean. The most productive players have been Vilardi and Ehlers. So, yes, you put Lowry with them because they had success in the last game. I mean, could the Jets have thrown Lowry out for a couple shifts with Niederreiter and Appleton to see what could happen? Because we know, yes, it's accurate. The third line has been the Jets' best line on some nights, and on a lot of nights they've been great, even if they haven't been the best line. They've been one of the top 2 lines for the Jets. For me, that we're missing the point here. Vilardi had 4 or 5 glorious chances.
No doubt.
With Lowry on his line. So if those are converted, we're not even talking about this, what happened to the third line. Because the third line would have been fine and the top line would have been producing. And even tonight, on a night where, I don't think Ehlers was as noticeable, well, he had 6 shots on goal and 9 shot attempts. So he was obviously generating. So for me, the top line was fine. They generated enough to be scoring goals, as you mentioned. Lowry himself had a post. And this was just one of the this is funny, Sean. Funny is not the right word. I mean, the Jets literally just won 8 in a row. They're on top of the NHL, and I get it. Fans expect them to win every single game. They're not on top of the NHL anymore. Sorry, today Vancouver passed them by 1 point. Going into today, leading the NHL. No team is going 82-0. The Jets lost today, Sean, is their 10th in regulation in 42 games. So I get it. It's our job to nitpick and do all of that stuff, but you got to have perspective, folks. And I understand, yes, it's very close to last year when the Jets were first overall in the NHL and the wheels completely fell off. I get it. That happened. It's up to this group to show that that's not going to happen again. But today is not an example that that's the first step in an absolute collapse for me. So, anyways.
Oh, no doubt. I agree with that 100%. But I will say this. I agree with everything you say, Ken. I agree that it was obvious to take Adam Lowry there. I agree that line played well. I agree that Vilardi had chance after chance after chance and a bunch of opportunities. I think what should be taken away from this is Adam Lowry has more of an offensive upside than I think anyone maybe coming in, because he was a good scorer in junior. So maybe coming into the NHL,
45 goals.
People thought that he would have the opportunity to become that. I think along the way, I've got a good buddy, the guy I grew up talking hockey with my entire life has always been really down on Lowry and thinks that, as a third line center, he thought he's one of the guys. Remember, we were having the conversation about moving him down to the fourth line. A lot of people were pushing and saying he should be the fourth line center because they just didn't think he had the offensive ability to do that. We all know what happened in the chat room here. There was a borderline revolt. I thought people were going to show up at my door with torches and pitchforks when I suggested moving him onto the power play. Oh, but
Sorry,
you
not
agreed
that
with me
part.
on that
No,
take.
sorry. I thought you were going to go to the
You're
fourth
just-
line
Oh,
take.
you're just saying I'm a bad guy. I did.
No,
I
that's
don't
not
think
what I'm
we didn't
saying.
go-
Get
Anyways,
lost. Get lost. That's wake up territory for you.
No, we're crossing.
Sorry to
wires here.
interrupt.
That's not what we're talking about. Anyway, so I think that exactly what you're saying is happening here, Ken. But I also do think that the Jets were discombobulated for what I think was a good chunk of the first period. Again, the Philadelphia Flyers won the first period. They won the second period, and then the Jets poured it on in the third period. But I would suggest that despite all that Adam Lowry did for that first line and the opportunities that they generated, I don't think the Jets get run over the way they do in the first period and the second period if the third line is intact, because the third line goes out and steals momentum back time and time again. And what the Jets really, really needed at some point in that second period, and I guess they kind of got it towards the tail end of the second period, but they needed someone to go out and steal the momentum back so that they could have started earlier than they did in that game. Now, the best solution for that is, going and seeing the geneticists who made two dollies in Scotland way back in the day. Like, two Adam Lowrys would solve the problem, but there's not enough of him to go around. So to me, Ken, I don't think it's the wrong move, and I'm not sitting on the fence here. I don't think it's the wrong move to move Adam Lowry to the first line, but I don't think it's the wrong move to keep him on the third line. Both could have had very different effects on this game, and clearly there was the opportunity to score and get back into that game. But if it's a different story, and if you've got Cole Perfetti or Vladdy Nemestikov or someone like that up on that first line, and the third line goes out and does what it typically does in games like this, I mean, what are the chances that that third line doesn't score in this game? This seems to be the kind of games that line lives for. So I agree with everything you're saying, Ken. This is one of those things I don't think there's a wrong answer. It's just kind of like, well, how do we think our best opportunity is to win this game? And I'm not sure the Jets' best opportunity wasn't in leaving Adam Lowry on that line to let that third line do what it typically does and see if someone else could find that chemistry with Gabe Vilardi and Nikolai Ehlers.
Well, I mean, just one other thing for folks maybe who didn't listen to Rick Bowness this morning or yesterday, whenever it was. I mean, Cole Perfetti is not an option to play center because he's dealing with a wrist issue. So,
but
I mean,
Vladdy Nemestikov is.
Yeah, I mean, fair. But then who's the second line center then?
Well, I mean, maybe
Kupari,
you move Rasmus Kupari up there. Wouldn't you rather try and get your first and third lines going, which have carried this team this year, and have your second line, which is your toss-in line, be the one that gets disrupted?
I don't know. I think that Cole Perfetti has been playing very well the last stretch of games and has had his offense going with Nemestikov, and I follow. So I wouldn't have done that personally.
Fair enough. That's fair enough.
But at the same time, I mean, like, I could have seen, like what you're talking about. Tony Nato played well on that third line in the second and third periods the other night.
Really good.
And he looked great in the third. So I understand fewer moves and fewer disruption being the call. But if I was worried about that, then I would have played Tony Nato on the third line and then disrupted three of the lines. And could you have gone, you could have gone Perfetti at center and then had Vilardi take draws. But I think the other thing that we kind of forget, like you mentioned it, Sean, Vilardi's got 9 goals since he's been back. Like, that's an incredible number. So to me, I don't need Gabriel Vilardi moving to center on the top line, because now you're putting something else on his plate, and he's still trying to find his way within the system. And he's doing a great job. And yes, he has played center at this level before, but he's playing very well for you. So leave him on the wing, let him keep doing the job that he's doing. So sometimes just because something doesn't work out doesn't mean it was the wrong choice. And that's why I think it was the right choice to have Lowry there. That line was the Jets' best line. So I've got no problem with what was done. And I also have no problem talking about the other things. I mean, somebody else asked, I started here. Is today an example that the Jets maybe need an additional center, which is what we've been talking about and debating about? I mean,
okay, hold on. Let's get right into that. Let's dig right into that. Before we do, I want you to give Sweet Lou a shout out, because this is a conversation that's going to take 10 minutes between the two of us. So give Sweet Lou a shout out.
Sure. We can also buy or sell on that second line center as a little bit of a teaser. There you go.
Yeah.
For folks who have realty needs they'd like to have met here in the new year, contact Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-0000. 9971 or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@loufurlan.ca. That's LOU at LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Furlan, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
Okay, let's keep this moving and get exactly to this. The idea of what happened here tonight. Now you lose one center, and listen, this was a conversation at the beginning of the year without Pierre-Luc Dubois.
Yep.
Had it really that second line filled in. Now Nemesnikov has done a great job with it, but Nemesnikov was kind of the guy that you needed to be the guy to cover you off in case Perfetti didn't work. Now that he's basically locked himself in as that second line center, there isn't really that, and I know, there's still injuries, and maybe we can go in a different direction with this, but I go back to the question that I asked of Kevin Cheveldayoff and the comments that I've made in this show. The job of the general manager is to take a look at this team and say, where are we potentially vulnerable? And the loss of Mark Scheifele, and let's be honest, it's hard to cover up off a player like that, but
for any team,
the loss
yes.
of Mark for any team, but the loss of Mark Scheifele in this game, I think, exposes one of those potential question marks that should be dealt with by Kevin Cheveldayoff. What's your take?
I'm buying the Jets needing to add depth, whether it's a winger or a center. I mean, I think that today's another example. And again, Mason Appleton had a great start to the year. I've been one of Mason Appleton's biggest supporters, and I think he can easily get himself back going offensively. But today's an example where, if the Jets do get a second-line center when Mark Scheifele is healthy, Vladislav Nemesnikov could play. He could fill in on the third line. He could fill in on the fourth line. He could be in the top six if you needed him to, if you had an injury there as well. I think if the Jets want to win 4 rounds, they need one more top six forward, even when Kyle Connor is healthy and in the lineup. That's not a knock on Alex Iafallo, who has done an admirable job filling in the top six. He's incredibly disruptive as a player. He's had some offensive capabilities. Mason Appleton has had a great start to the year, but he's cooled off offensively. I think if the Jets want to win 4 rounds, and if they need to dispatch teams like the Colorado Avalanche, like the Dallas Stars, like the Edmonton Oilers, Vegas Golden Knights, LA Kings, whoever comes out of the West, you want to win 3 rounds just to get to the final. You need to upgrade the offensive ability. I completely understand the whole chemistry thing that Kevin Cheveldayoff talked about, and that's 100% has to be a factor. I'm not going out here and saying get a disruptive player or someone who doesn't pass the character test but can score goals. Don't do that. I'm not advocating for that. I don't think for a second the Jets take that kind of a risk. But if you can add a high character player who just so happens to be a top 6 forward, whether it's a center or a winger, it doesn't matter to me. Whether it's Travis Konechny or somebody else, those are the kind of players that help push a team over the top. The Jets are looking for this year's Ivan Barbashev. There's no other way around it. I'm not saying him as a player, but someone who plays like him. And, I'm not saying the Jets can't win without doing that, but they certainly will enhance their chances of doing that, and that's why I think they will do it. That's why I'm buying on whether it's to me it doesn't matter if it's a second line center or right winger or left winger, but I'm buying a top 6 forward if I'm Kevin Cheveldayoff. And although, like I said, he tried to play coy, which is what he does, I 100% think he's doing more than just kicking the tires on trying to add and upgrade his roster.
I'm going in a totally different direction, but I should touch a little on that again, because we'll flesh that out a little bit. I'm buying on the comment made by Cheech on the broadcast tonight that Josh Morrissey is an all-star, and it's crazy if he doesn't make it there. Josh Morrissey tonight, again, almost willed this team back into this game. Lowry, like I said, looked great on the front end there, but Josh Morrissey, I've talked about how good Mark Scheifele has been this year, that for me, he's been the MVP for the vast majority of this year. But we've talked about this, like the baseline for Josh Morrissey and his game is so ridiculously high, like what he just consistently comes out and does. We're seeing greatness. Like, we're seeing greatness from this guy. It's these guys that you always take a look at and you think, like, God, what makes this guy tick, and what makes this guy tick? And for so many years in the NHL, it was kind of, it looked so obvious, because it was like, you'd have these big, huge guys like Chris Pronger who could just dominate the game and walk up and with power, like blow the puck past you or whatever. Or guys like Paul Coffey, who you just couldn't take their eyes off because they were just so fast and so, always involved in the play. Josh Morrissey's got this ability to have this baseline behind him where he's almost like a little bit Connor Hellebuyck-esque in the idea that it's not big and boring, and there's nothing boring about it, but it's so subtle what makes him great, and it's shift after shift after shift, game after game after game, and now season on top of the last season, where like last year was clearly no fluke, and there's been I think Nick Lynham has really led the charge on this one, but I do think that he's taken a step forward this year. Like, he's better than he was last year. He's at the point where he's almost taking games over. He draws guys in. He jumps into the play at the right time. He's so hard to keep a handle on. That was a good Flyers team tonight in the way that I agree with the comment you made earlier tonight, Ken. I feel like the Flyers are like the Jets light, a really structured team that is just getting places because they're really bought into their system, which is, I think, a little more chaotic than the Jets. I think they have to work harder to pull off their system than the Jets have been pulling off. But tonight, it was almost like at one point, either Josh Morrissey was just upping his risk profile, or he was figuring out this team and just was getting more and more opportunities in the game. His ability to get open just out of the blue like that's really what makes players stars, their ability to get open, especially in tight situations. He shows it time and time and time again. I'm buying on the idea that if Josh Morrissey doesn't find his way in the All-Star game, and
he's not in as of right now.
Yes, it's a popularity contest. Josh Morrissey not being in the All-Star game is just an indictment on the All-Star game and the format by which they pick All-Stars. Absolutely no doubt.
It's another pristine wake-up call. I mean, honestly, if Josh Morrissey is an All-Star, there's no way around it. It's ridiculous. It really is.
No doubt about it. I wanted to finish up on that. Like, I'm just going to double down on the comments that you were saying and basically what you're buying with Lou Ferrell. And I could have easily done that, but I wanted to make sure we got our Josh Morrissey talk in here tonight, because he no doubt deserves
26-10 tonight. Just quickly, sorry, before you dig into it, just Josh's night, 28 shifts, 26-10, 3 shots on goal, 9 shot attempts, 2 hits, 1 takeaway, and he nearly decapitated Garnet Hathaway. And Josh is probably lucky. They had a little bit of a back and forth there, and Hathaway kind of got him at the blue line, but it wasn't dirty. And Josh did an incredible job, Sean. They caught it on the broadcast, of keeping the puck in as he's falling down.
Yes.
But then he took a humongous run at him, and then later on, Brendan Dillon took a run at someone in the neutral zone also. It's funny. The Flyers are one of those teams, the Jets only see them twice a year, but there seems to be a little bit of unrest with the two groups, and I'm here for it. I like a little extra intensity in these non-conference games.
Maul says Norris Trophy is greater than the All-Star game. That's going to be a tricky one to win this year, the way that Quinn Hughes is playing, and I think Cale Makar is right behind him. This is kind of one of those things where I feel like we're at the stage, and it's similar with, Rocket Richard Trophy is, you can't fudge that one, but it's starting to feel to me like, we go into the season and that's Cale Makar's trophy to lose. And in order to do that, because of what you get from Cale Makar and because of the way he impacts a game, that you almost need to, if not outscore him, be very, very close to that. I think Josh Morrissey's one of those guys that when he gets into the playoffs, he's as effective a player as any defenseman in the league. I used to say this about Byfuglien all the time. Byfuglien never won a Norris Trophy, but when it came down to the playoffs and what he was capable of there, like, you remember when they played Nashville and Roman Josi, and there was all this talk about how good Roman Josi was going to be in the playoffs. would anyone have taken Roman Josi over Dustin Byfuglien in those series? Like when it came down to it, Dustin Byfuglien had an element that almost any defenseman that was winning a Norris or not did not have. And I think in a very different looking way, Josh Morrissey's got a little bit of that. Like, you know what you're going to get. Well, they touched on it tonight. They were trying to compare him to Morgan Riley. They have the same amount of points, and yet Josh Morrissey's like ahead of him by like plus 15 or something like that. I know a lot of people like to toss away that stat. They don't think it's a good stat, but there's no doubt about it. Josh Morrissey is a ridiculously solid defensive defenseman, and yet on a night like tonight is essentially leading the charge for the Jets on a comeback offensively. So absolutely phenomenal by him there. Wanted to get back to that point though. I think this is it. And I think this is the point that I've been trying to make for a long time here. You are a Mark Scheifele injury away from having to basically discombobulate your lines in order to try and make things work. And that is solved if you've got a second line center that is an obvious pick to move up into the number one hole if something like that happens, right? Like, hey, we're saying it, and let's say it again. Adam Lowry did a phenomenal job jumping up in there. I thought outside of Josh Morrissey, he was the Jets' second best player on this night and is the guy who almost got them back into this game. But Adam Lowry also anchors a third line that is, so this is a pick your poison thing. Would you rather have him up with that first line, or would you rather have that third line that is probably recognized Ken very, very in a majority fashion across the league as being the best third line in the NHL? Would you rather have that third line stay the same or have to break it up if something happens to Mark Scheifele? You solve that by going and getting a second line center that is obviously a guy who goes into that hole if Mark Scheifele goes down. This exposed something in the Winnipeg Jets here tonight. Kevin Cheveldayoff needs to pay attention. Kevin Cheveldayoff needs to address this at the trade deadline. Do you have anything else to say on that?
No, I mean, I just think they're going to go and get somebody on the, for sure up front, and whether it's a depth player or a top six, I think they definitely will be looking at a top six forward if they can get one and find one under the cap. But yeah, I mean, faceoffs are another. I mean, again, I'm not a huge faceoffs being an issue person, to be honest. Today it was 53-47, so I mean, not a terrible night in the circle for the Jets, but it's an area where they need to be better at. But overall, I just think that the Jets are going to be looking to upgrade because they know we've been talking for a long time, Sean. The comparisons between 2017-18 and this year, I mean, the depth was there, and the biggest difference is on the back end. Where Dustin Byfuglien, Jacob Trouba, and Tyler Myers occupied the right side. I mean, the Jets' right side is very capable now, but I just don't think that there is anyone saying that the Jets' right side this year is as good as it was in 2017-18.
No.
And again, that's no disrespect to the guys that are on the defense core right now. They're just not at the same level, even with Morrissey playing at a ridiculous level, and he was already playing a very valuable role in the Jets' shutdown pairing with Jacob Trouba at that time. But I just think that, I mean, we're going to be talking about this for 8 weeks now, or just under 8 weeks, but I do think the Jets are going to be looking for an upgrade because they know what the path looks like. And yes, they have 4 lines that are very capable, and they've gone 15 forwards deep already this year, but I think by the time the season is over, the Jets will be going, 17 forwards deep and, 8 or 9 on the back end, whatever it ends up being. And that's just the way that it goes. And yeah, I do think that Kevin Cheveldayoff is going to be active.
Yeah, as Tracy Okranik says here, Chevy is well aware they needed to see. I mean, it's not anything we haven't said before, Ken. There has been a lot of people, though, in our chat room who've said, don't mess with chemistry. And I thought it was interesting that Kevin Cheveldayoff threw that out during his availability where he talked about the chemistry and saying you don't want to mess with it. I think that's, again, I called BS on that in the last show. Not in an aggressive way. I'm not trying to, but what I am saying is this is the guy who went out and picked up Vladislav Nemestikov and Nino Niederreiter at the trade deadline and is basically, found Velarde and put him into a place where he's fit in absolutely in a phenomenal fashion. Same thing with Alex Iafallo. I would listen, if there's anything that I think that I would trust Kevin Cheveldayoff to do if I were a Winnipeg Jets fan, is go find a guy that you think is going to fit with chemistry within this lineup.
Right.
I think the only obvious miss that they've ever had is Kevin Hayes. I would suggest. I mean, I guess maybe Cody Eakin wasn't, these are different kind of pickups. You know what I mean? Like we're going back to the days. We're back in the days now where it's like you've got a team that's at the top of the league, and now you need to add and not mess with that. Those other ones are kind of like, well, what can we go out and get, and how much do we want to give up to get something? That's a little bit of a different situation. But Kevin Hayes was a team that was at the top of the league, a team they thought was going to win a cup that year, or very well could. And what do we need? We need to go add another guy. That was a miss, no doubt. In that,
but he's also a two-way player that had playoff experience, so you can understand why they went out and got him, even though, again, it didn't work out. But
it didn't work.
That was the kind of player that the Jets were looking for. It just didn't work out for him here. And again, it hasn't worked out for him very well since, even though he made the All-Star game last year. I mean, he couldn't last in Philly either. So
let's close this
that
out.
Swing is still worth taking, even though it didn't work out.
Oh, no doubt. I guess if the point is, if the point is he's sitting there and he's saying chemistry, we have to weigh that, and you don't want to upset that chemistry. My point, I think, still stands. For the most part, Kevin Cheveldayoff has gone and found guys who create great chemistry here. Stastny is probably at the top of that.
It's the best example
when you're talking about it. The best example. But yeah, that one, not nearly, probably the worst example if we're going to go there. Anyways, I think the point here is that we both know that going out and getting a 2C, we believe would really pay off for the Winnipeg Jets. And if you are looking to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars in the process. Go to cambrian.mb.ca to book an appointment online. Ken, time for your Johnston Group Got You Covered play of the game.
Oh boy, you start. I don't know.
You want me to start on it?
If you don't mind, sorry.
Well, I think the obvious one for me is Adam Lowry moving up to the first line, and really not, I think, allow it. Like, this may have been the game in which Gabe Vilardi looked most dangerous. Now, he doesn't score, and we know we've seen his hands in tight around the net, but I don't think I remember a game where Gabe Vilardi had this many opportunities to impact the game. It's almost like he benefited more from Adam Lowry than he has from Mark Scheifele in this situation. So Adam Lowry, again, a guy that people scoffed at for a long time, scoffed at me earlier for suggesting to put him in an offensive position. Last game, went out, helped lead the charge to get the Jets to a come-from-behind victory in which they set a franchise record in consecutive wins. Again tonight, didn't miss a beat. He looks like he belongs in a situation with high impact, high offensive players. So for me, that's why he's got the Johnston Group Got You Covered play, not play of the game, but plays of the game on this night. Let's say
fair. I like that also. And then Vilardi, 5 shots on goal, 8 attempts. I mean, and at least 3 of them or 4 of them were of the high danger variety. And he also had a backdoor near setup again, like the several he's had on that far post late in the game during the 6-on-5. So I'm absolutely in agreement there.
Yeah, good stuff. Nailed it. And hey, if you run a small business in Canada, what you need to do is look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And I know he's just ducking out of the show. Maybe we can catch him before he does so. But Dallas Pauls says, is it headband time, Rennie? If we're going to do it, this is as good a time to do it as any. So let's do it. Let's make this a Sean's headband version of the Kenny and Rennie show. Let's hit it. Before we move on to the keg save of the game, Ken, I should shout out to,
Good
because we
tune.
had 200 people in before, people in and people rolling through the show here. Just a reminder, SK has bought a pair of tickets to the February 10th game, Hockey Night in Canada between the Winnipeg Jets and the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's giving them away in the chat room. If you want in on that, if you hadn't heard about it, you just have to type hashtag K&R, either K with an N and an R, or a K and an A-N-D and an R, or a K and the and symbol and R. I don't care what you do, but if you want those tickets, you need to hashtag and throw that in there. If you want a chance at winning those tickets, SK will pick it out. And some lucky fan here tonight, and Kenny and Rennie, is going to be going to that game on February 10th. Ken, moving to the keg save of the game, what do you got?
Yeah, I sent this to you early in the game. I mean, there was tons of saves all around. Samuel Ersson robbed Gabriel Velarde several times, as we've mentioned. But I think one of the sneakiest good saves of the game came in the first period. Connor Hellebuyck had a ridiculous skate save on Scott Lawton. And for me, that is my choice of the keg save of the game this evening. Because Connor Hellebuyck, another great night, as you mentioned, 944, really solid night. Another game where Hellebuyck gives up 2 or fewer. And that, to me, I think dates back to November 17th. I'd have to double check. He's only had 1 game where he's allowed 3, and that was an overtime. Oh, no, that was, yeah.
I mean, this is going to sound ridiculous, but I think that this was one of Connor Hellebuyck's best games all year. Maybe it doesn't sound ridiculous, but I know a lot of people see, well, he had a shutout, a couple games ago and whatever. Connor Hellebuyck was challenged a lot more this game than he has been for the most part this year. First 2 periods, I think the biggest failure of the Winnipeg Jets is the Philadelphia Flyers were getting to the front of the net in a way that I'm not used to seeing teams get to the front of the net against the Winnipeg Jets. But Connor Hellebuyck, this is the thing that he has in him, is like, I've said this before about the Jets system. It gives them an opportunity to win games every night. I think it got to a place where it made it hard to beat the Jets on any given night based on them playing that system. But this is, to me, is an example. If I'm the Winnipeg Jets, I walk away from this and I say, well, if we're in a playoff game and we don't have our fastball, or we're a little bit tired from the grind, or whatever happens, he'd said it before. I play underneath this system, but I know I've got the capability to steal games if the opportunity arises or if the team needs me to. He didn't steal the game here tonight. It may sound ridiculous saying it when the other goaltender was the better goaltender on this night, but this game is out of reach at some point if Connor Hellebuyck doesn't do what he does, shut the door after that second goal. Great opportunity from him tonight. And yeah, you'd said the toe save, that one that he just barely gets the toe on.
Yeah.
Ken, I couldn't agree with you more. A lot, it's one of those ones that you had to go back and be like, did he actually get his toe on that thing? And maybe that puck just hits the post. But to me, what that save shows, Ken, is a ridiculous awareness of where he is in his crease and where his posts are. It's basically, he fully extends the pad, and maybe that shot was going to go off the inside of the post and in. If it was, the fact that Connor Hellebuyck just got his toe on it means that he was in a spot where, as he fully extended his toe, it covered off the entirety of the net. That would be next level, insane level understanding of where you are in your crease. And I think that's what we saw on that play. By the way, Ken, you probably couldn't hear
his skate blade. I thought it almost hit his blade instead of his toe.
Yes.
It's crazy.
But I'll say this: you probably weren't hearing it. Kelly Rudy said it numerous times on the panel tonight. He thinks that Connor Hellebuyck should not just be given consideration as one of the best goalies in the game right now. He thinks Connor Hellebuyck is at the stage already where he should be given credit as one of the best goaltenders in the history of the game, is where Kelly Rudy, a great goaltender in his own right, has Connor Hellebuyck in his career right now. That is high praise coming from someone like Kelly Rudy. Hey,
just one last one on Hellebuyck. Sorry. One time in his last 19 starts, Sean, he's allowed 3 goals. One time in 19 starts. That's crazy.
And I'll argue,
and that's an overtime.
I'm going to argue, and I will continue to argue, a lot of that in those 19 games has to do with the team in front of him, right? I think if he's playing against a different team with a different system, we're not talking about the same thing. But tonight is an example where the team wasn't there and he still kept it to 2 goals or under. So give him credit there. I can say what I want about that. Tonight, when the team wasn't there for him, he was there. Other nights, so the team has most definitely been there for him and created the snare that we're talking about. Anyway, time to give away, that's Ken's and my keg save of the game. Doesn't matter what we think, matters what you think. That's why you need to share with us your keg save of the game, because if you do, you're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate to any of the 3 keg locations in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And our winner from last show, that would be Crystal Morgan. So Crystal, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Give me your full name, which I know is Crystal Morgan, and give me your email, and I will have the keg send you a $50 gift certificate to be used at any of the city's keg locations, each location finer than the last. Okay, moving on to the TCB Lamp Lighter of the game, TransCanada Brewing Company. Ken, what do you got?
Well, I mean, Cam Atkinson is going to be the winner, Sean, but although I appreciated his backhand redirection kind of shovel play, I actually think that his second goal is what I'm going to choose as the lamp lighter, because of it's everything that we've been talking about. I mean, the Jets' power play hasn't been going. What does Cam Atkinson do? His feet are on the edge of the blue paint, and he battles to jam in the puck on the rebound after Morgan Frost takes the shot from just inside the post. So Cam Atkinson's not a big guy, Sean. He battles to get to the front of the net and then finds the puck. So his willingness to go to the hard area is my choice for the lamplighter this evening. Even though I love the fact that the first goal is the absolute epitome of what the Jets and the third line specifically that you were talking about earlier, what that line does to their opposition. They disrupted play. The Jets could not get a clear. They had a good cycle shift, and Cam Atkinson gets loose in front and takes the pass and delivers. But I love the second goal because it gave some valuable breathing room for a team playing on back-to-back nights, and it was a representation of getting to the hard areas. And for Atkinson, it was first in 26 games, I think. So 27 game, 26 goal drought, and he tossed the monkey into the crowd like multiple occasions.
Yes, longest of his career. Hey, I'll say this. I agree with you on that just because of the reaction that he had. Connor Hellebuyck, another great save, a candidate for keg save of the game, was robbing Cam Atkinson of his hat trick. I will say this, in Rennie's mind, Cam Atkinson completed the hat trick. He was the post-game interview on Hockey Night in Canada, and he absolutely nailed his interview, gave a great interview. Add to that his reaction to getting the monkey off his back. It was a heck of a night for Cam Atkinson. It was good to see that. He's one of the good guys in the sport of hockey, no doubt. One thing we always like to see is we like to see good people, good things happen to good people. Cam Atkinson is one of them good people there, folks. That is our lamplighter of the game. Doesn't matter what we think, matters what you think. So share with us your lamplighter of the game, because if you do, you're automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you cannot wait for Kenny and Rennie to gift you your own 8-pack, then what you need to do is head on down to TransCanada Brewing Company at 11290 Keniston. Join them in their tap room. You can have their beers on tap. You can buy them out of the fridge and take them home with you. They've got so many great options there, and their food is out of this world. Their pizza, I'm salivating just thinking about it. I don't know if you could find it, Ken, but if you can, throw up, there it is, our Eventbrite for, what day is it? What day is it, Ken? January 22nd,
buddy. Monday. Yep,
January 22nd. Coming up on Monday. Just over a week from now. Need you to help us fill out that room, folks. We're getting close, but we need you to help us fill it out. So if anyone has been sitting on their hands before getting tickets to the Kenny and Rennie live show on January 22nd, a Monday game against the Boston Bruins, going to be a great game. We'd love to see you down there. So head on over to Eventbrite and grab your tickets. And it is time now for me to hand out our Lamplighter winner from our last game. And that winner would be Charlie Horse from the chat room. I don't know if I've seen, I know we've seen today KFC. I don't know if we've seen Charlie Horse. So Charlie Horse, if you're here, you got to do this. If you're not here and you're listening later, here's the deal. You got to direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name and send me your email, and I will send you a voucher for a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends from TCB Trans-Canada Brewing Company, the absolute nectar of the gods. Before we go, this comment it hijacked my mind here, so I got to get back to it. Blake Grist said Rennie is calling Hellebuyck a systems quarterback. Listen, Connor Hellebuyck at one time in his career, because it was required of him from the Winnipeg Jets, was like the Doug Flutie quarterback. The guy had to scramble for his life all the time to keep his team alive, and he did that. A systems quarterback, that's not an insult. Maybe you don't mean it as one, or maybe you do. I don't know. You could just be saying it. But the fact of the matter is, a good systems quarterback, a guy like Tom Brady or Troy Aikman or someone like that, are phenomenal players. Right now, Connor Hellebuyck has gone from having to be and transitioned from being that scrambling quarterback who keeps his team alive. You know, Donovan McNabb, who's the guy from the Falcons all those years ago, who is the ultimate guy, got in trouble for the dog fighting rings. God, how am I dropping
Michael
that?
Vick.
Michael Vick. You know, he had to be Michael Vick at one point. Now he's settling into being Tom Brady or Troy Aikman or someone like that, who those are high compliments I'm handing out there. I would put it like this, if we're putting it in hockey terms. For a long time, Connor Hellebuyck has had to be the Carey Price to the Montreal Canadiens teams that he dragged to the Stanley Cup final and dragged to the conference final on 2 occasions, teams that probably didn't deserve to be there. What we're seeing from Connor Hellebuyck and the Winnipeg Jets right now is more along the lines of Brodeur behind those ferocious New Jersey Devils defensive teams. And both are great quarterbacks to have, is what I'm going to say on this spot. That's it for us. We got to get out of here. Before we do, I want to say, if you appreciate the conversation happening in this space, please appreciate the contributions by our sponsors who keep the conversation going in this space for us. That's Vittorio Rossi, Pristine Roofing, Cambrian Credit Union, Sweet Lou Furlan, the Kenny and Rennie OGs, the Johnston Group, and of course the Keg and Trans-Canada Brewing Company. And thank you to all of you. Hey, we're back to seeing it. People don't like handling losses. We're taking the hit in the chat room, but good to know that those of you who showed up had a pretty big cherry on top here tonight with the giving away of a pair of Jets tickets by our good friend Stuart Kaspersky, who bought tickets for the February 10th game between the Winnipeg Jets and the Pittsburgh Penguins, a Hockey Night in Canada game. He's going to get the information back to us. We will announce the winner of those tickets on our next K&R, so you do not want to miss that. We can't wait to talk to you. A little bit of a break here for the Jets. Rennie's off to Columbus tomorrow for
safe travels, my man.
Monday matinee between the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Vancouver Canucks. Then I will be back in time for Tuesday's show. Can't wait to talk to you then, everybody. Bye-bye.